bondage and my freedom would still be odd. Douglas posits that his is an American book for Americans, explicit about the horrors of enslavement. Why then make room for an emperor who tried, albeit unsuccessfully, to re-enslave the people of Haiti, and who did re-enslave many across the French Empire? As this book will demonstrate, Napoleon Bonaparte pops up in all kinds of unexpected, counterintuitive, even counterfactual ways in the 19th century United States. A young Douglas, learning to read with the Columbian orator, would have met a young General Bonaparte, pledged to a war against tyrants. First published in 1797, Caleb Bingham's Primer was organized to establish principles of elocution and republican virtue. The collection steeped Douglas in the Catonic rhetoric of freedom, in which the choice of liberty or death provided the best response to tyranny's tightening grasp. John Barnard has suggested that the orator's Catonic selections would perhaps have been for many American readers the volume's most compelling. Maybe, but there are two selections that could have bested Cato for the attention of a young boy in the 1830s. Speech of a French General to his Army and Speech of a French General. The titles are dull, the speeches are not. Stirring exhortations by a military superstar, the speeches charge the gathered troops to rouse the Roman people entrenched in so many ages of slavery, generating through war a glorious peace worthy of their sacrifice. Calls to glory, these orations identify the French army as soldiers of liberty in Italy to break the chains of people held in bondage. If reading the orator allowed Douglas to be Cato before the Roman Senate, it also let him be Napoleon at Lodi. Douglas mentions neither speech when explaining the volume's influence on him, but they are redolent of the principles of liberty he celebrates in his autobiographies. There is a signal difference to admiring Napoleon Bonaparte in 1797, when the speeches were selected from the orator, than celebrating him in the 1830s or 1855. General Bonaparte had not yet become the Emperor Napoleon. Like many across the 19th century, Douglas seems to have toggled between the two figures. When Napoleon appears in The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, 1845, he characterizes Captain Auld. At times, he spoke to his slaves with the firmness of Napoleon and the fury of a demon. At other times, he might well be mistaken for an inquirer who had lost his way. Yet, in 1846, Douglas adopts a maxim of Napoleon's as his own. Never occupy ground which the enemy would like you to occupy. A passage that draws on Bonaparte's military reputation. Even though he was opposed to everything the emperor represented, it is not hard to imagine that Douglas, the most photographed American of the 19th century, could have gleaned from Napoleon the first celebrity of the modern age, the incredible power of ubiquity. In order to see things, we must first look at them as if they were meaningless, Carlo Ginzburg advises, with a nod to Victor Shklovsky, as seemingly meaningless as a riddle. With Napoleon, that is a tall order because he was, and is, ubiquitous, seemingly able to materialize at will. My visual rhetoric notwithstanding, Napoleon survives his death in narrative even more comprehensively than in image, filling centuries with his story, his history, his sayings, his tactics in poems, treatises, tales, biographies, codes, symphonies, and dramas, justifying obliquely the promise of an early speculative narrative that imagined the miraculous future his continued presence would guarantee. Given all this material, what riddle could possibly remain about Napoleon Bonaparte? As the 20th century